All right, we're going to look at how we write equations for consecutive integer word problems. Remember, at this point, we are not going to solve these equations. We are only going to write them because if you write the incorrect equation from the word problem, you will not get the answer correct when you solve it. So that's our focus. So we're looking at this problem. It says the sum of three consecutive integers is a negative 114. Find the integers. All right, remember integers are both positive and negative numbers, including 0. All right, so basically when we're talking about the word consecutive, consecutive means one after another. All right, so one after another. Okay, so I'll give an example. An example of three consecutive integers could be 3, 4, and 5. Okay, that's an example of three consecutive integers. Another set of three consecutive integers could be 102, 103, 104. So when we're setting up a word problem, we don't know any of the integers that are involved in the problem. So we always make the first integer x. All right, so we would make the first integer x. And I'll show you just by example here. And then we have to look at how would we get the next integer. Well, when it was 102, we would add 1 to get 103. If it were 3, we would have added 1 to get the next consecutive integer of 4. So what we would do then, if the first integer is x, we would add 1 to it to get the next integer. Again, here, same thing. To go from 102 to 103, we're adding 1. So instead of saying, because we don't know what this next integer will be in the word problem, the first one's x, the next one is x plus 1. And if you guess correctly, everything's based on your first integer. How do we get from 3 to 5? We add 2. So how do we get from x to the third consecutive integer? We add 2. Okay? So when we're talking about consecutive integer word problems, we have to focus on what it's saying. So consecutive means one after another. So what we're going to do in our notes is we're going to set up a table, like a chart. And you're going to put the first, we'll say consecutive number, the second consecutive number, and the third consecutive number. And I know you think, oh, well, why should I do that? You say, why can't I just say first, second, and third? Well, the reason is we can also have even and odd integers, and that's what we'll go into the next problem. All right, so for this problem, we have the sum of three consecutive integers is negative 114. Sum means we're going to total them all, but first we have to figure out what they are. Well, we're not going to guess and check this because that's a little insane, and we are in algebra, which means we have to put together an equation. So we're going to write an equation for this. Well, we start with the first consecutive integer, and we do not know it. So when we do not know something in algebra, we make it a variable, in most cases, x. So if this were the number 3, and the next consecutive integer would be 4, that meant I added 1. So I would take my first consecutive integer of x, the unknown integer, and I would add 1 to it. So my second consecutive integer is going to be x plus 1. My third consecutive integer, if this were 3 and this were 5, then how did I get from 3 to 5? Well, I added 2 to get there. So since we're dealing with an unknown of x, then this would be x plus 2. Or another way to look at it is x is always your first unknown integer. To get the next consecutive, you add 1 to x, and to get the one after that, you add 1 to the x plus 1, which gives you x plus 2. Okay? Now, for the equation, here comes the big part, okay? The equation. We want the sum of all three consecutive integers is negative 114. So the first consecutive integer is x. The second consecutive integer is x plus 1. The third consecutive integer is x plus 2. and it equals to negative 114. Okay, and I'm going to just take another sheet here so that we can clean it up a bit. So we have x plus 1 plus x plus 2 equals negative 114. All right, now if you do know how to combine terms or simply to combine terms, we have 1, 2, 3 x's, and we have a plus 1 and a plus 2, which is positive, or plus 3. So I will accept at this point in time, because of what we're learning in what order, this equation here or this one. Okay, so this one's just taking all of your consecutive integers in an unknown of x and writing it out and equal to negative 114. Or if you do know how to combine very simply, it would be 3x plus 3 equals negative 114. If you don't know how to do this yet, don't sweat it. This is acceptable. And that is how you write an equation for consecutive integer problems. Okay. Sometimes you can have 2, 3, sometimes you'll have 4. It depends on the problem, so you have to pay attention to the words. All right, now let's look at the next one. Find 2 consecutive even integers whose sum is 126. Well, the key word here is even integers. So even integers on the side, I'll write a couple. 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., right? So those are even integers. So again, what we're going to do is set up a chart. And we only want 2. So it's the first even and the second even number. And we don't need this, so we can just zip it out there. All right, well, we don't know any of the integers. So if we don't know any of them, we have to choose one of them to be x, and we always choose the first one to be x, the unknown. Now, if the first number was 2, how did we get to 4? Well, we add 2. So we're talking about even integers. Even integers skip count by 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 100, 102, 104. Okay? So this would be x plus 2. So that's your table construction for organizing yourself. Now comes the equation. We want to find 2 consecutive even integers whose sum is 126. So we're going to add the first and second even integer. Well, the first integer is x. The second integer is x plus 2. And they equal to 126. Now, if you want, you can just drop the parentheses because everything's being added. And if you do know how to combine like terms, you can say x plus x is 2x plus 2 equals 126. And I'll take either of these 2 equations. Whoops. Okay? So that's how you get an equation for 2 consecutive even integers. Again, you could have 2, 3, 4 of them, and you would just keep skip counting by 2. So if you had a third one, it would be x plus 4. Okay? All right, next. Find 3 consecutive odd integers whose sum is 111. Okay, well, odd. Odd integers means that, for example, 1, 3, 5, 7, etc. But notice you still skip counting by 2. So what do you add to 1 to get 3? You add 2. What do you add to 3 to get 5? You add 2. So you skip counting by 2 here. So if your first one's the unknown, the next one would still be like an evens. Integers would be x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, and so on. So let's build our table. We have 3 consecutive integers, odd integers. So the first odd, the second odd, and the third odd. Okay? The first one, we don't know. We don't know any of them, so the first one is the real unknown one. We make x. Because it's an odd integer, we would skip count by 2 to get the next one, so we would take the first one and add 2 to it. To get the third one, we would add 2 to the previous integer, so x plus 2 more would be x plus 4. Now, I know that looks a little strange to some of us because we got the word odd in our head and we're expecting odd numbers here, but we're talking about skip counting, not about the actual number itself. Okay, so now for our equation. Well, we want the sum of all three of them that adds up to 111. So it's x plus 2 plus x plus 4 equals 111. And so you can drop the parentheses also because everything is being added. So this is also an acceptable equation. Or if you do know how to combine like terms and you're comfortable, we have 1, 2, 3 x's. And we have positive 2 plus 4, so 6, so plus 6. And there you go. So any of these equations would be acceptable at this point. And that sums up for us how to write equations of consecutive integers, consecutive even integers, and consecutive odd integers. Set up the table, then write your equation, and that's all that we're going to do for now.